to another episode of Zone Coverage. I'm Cody Schoeler here with Ryan Root, as always, ready to talk about some NFL action, what went down in Week 17, but not the normal Week 17, not the last week of the season, as we have one more week in this first 17-game season. So we want to start with talking about which games mean the most. What were the biggest games of the weekend? I mean, I know my answer, and it's the Seahawks are back, baby. You were doubting them. You were so confident Detroit was going to win. And not only did Detroit not win, but it was the best Seattle's looked probably since the Super Bowl against Denver, honestly. Just a fantastic performance. But we don't have to talk about that game because we're talking about the games that actually mean something, and that game meant nothing. So just needed to put that out there.
It kind of meant something to Seattle because I had to look back at some of their previous games in the previous seasons. Seattle has not scored over 50 points since 2012, and that was when they had the back-to-back games against Arizona and Buffalo where they scored over 50 points. They had like 110 combined points over 2 weeks. That was the year before their Super Bowl year. That is the last time that they scored 50 points in a regular season game. I don't think they scored it in a playoff game. That would probably be a record of some sorts. But
no, they got like 43 against the Broncos, so really close, but not 50.
Right. So I mean, it does mean something considering that Russell Wilson was hinting at, I don't want this to be my last game in Seattle. There is that possibility in the air, but there's a fraction of me that thinks that, Pete Carroll just really wanted to coach just an absolute blast of a game against, one of the worst ranked teams in the league that competes really hard, but they didn't have the starting quarterback, to be fair to the Lions. Not like it would have mattered too much, but
would it have made much of a difference? Probably not.
No, but I mean, Seattle went back to playing aggressive. Rashad Penny's been playing very well as of late, and it means something at the end of the day, considering that Russell Wilson does have loyalty to the Seahawks.
Yeah, it might mean something for next year, but nothing for right now. But what game do you think actually meant the most? Because obviously it's not my real answer.
To be honest, it's got to be the Bengals and Chiefs game, considering that just the way that game ended, as well as just how the Bengals stuck with the Chiefs the entire time. I mean, I tweeted it out yesterday saying, say what you want about this Bengals team, but they know how to compete in the big games against any team. They did it against Green Bay. They did it against San Fran a few weeks ago. They're doing it against the Chiefs. I mean, when when all the lights are shining on them to have them perform to win the division over the Ravens that were supposed to win the division. If not, it was supposed to be the Browns. But the Bengals, who had one of the lowest win total predictions in the league before the season started, now clinched up the AFC North with this win over the Chiefs. That has to mean the most to me, considering Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase has to be one of the best receiver-quarterback connections this year alone. I mean, you would obviously take into account Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. You can obviously take into account Patrick Mahomes and maybe Travis Kelce or Tyreek Hill, whichever you want to pick, or Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. But Joe Burrow and
I put Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett, I think.
But sometimes it's Lockett and sometimes it's Metcalf. Just like with Patty, sometimes it's Kelce, sometimes it's Tyreek Hill.
If you're talking about it doesn't always work in the game. Same. I mean, Chase has had. I mean, it had been Higgins the past couple of games in terms of guys that could just connect. That's why Adams and Rodgers are number one, because they can just anytime they just have a mind meld. And so I think it's same thing with Wilson and Lockett and C.J. Stroud and Jackson Smith and Jigba, a little college football action in there from the Rose Bowl. But Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow just have a great connection. And I mean, Joe Burrow is a top 5 wide receiver this year, probably. I mean,
you mean Jamar Chase?
Yeah, Joe Burrow is the quarterback. But Jamar Chase, top 5 wide receiver, probably. And, looking forward. And T. Higgins would be a number 1 receiver on a lot of other teams. So obviously that was a huge win for the Bengals. The end of play calling stuff, I agree with going for the touchdown because if you kick a field goal with a minute left, the Chiefs are going to at least kick a field goal, or at least going to get the field goal off. I do think they got bailed out a bit because if it wasn't for a holding or hands to the face on fourth down, they would have came away with nothing. Like, you've got to be better prepared for those situations. Like, if you make a play call like that, you better have a good play to run, and not like they get bailed out a bit. But I like being aggressive. Cincinnati's done that. You have to do that to beat the Chiefs. I'm still a little concerned about the coach. We'll see, just because he's inexperienced. But I mean, Cincinnati, yeah, they are surprisingly up there. Joe Burrow getting a little MVP love. I think he's fourth in odds behind the trio of Rodgers, Brady, and Taylor. But I mean, with what he's done the past 2 weeks, it's like, why not throw him in there?
You have to consider comeback player of the year for him at least now, because maybe it's not so much of a runaway for Dak Prescott. Joe Burrow has a hint of a chance.
Maybe, but I still think it's a narrative award. And sure. I mean, the image of Dak Prescott getting carted off the field, with tears. Joe Burrow's closed the gap a bit, but it'll go to Dak. I mean, but yeah, I mean, if you're going in terms of like play, then it's certainly much closer. Yeah, I mean, Cincinnati, huge win. I mean, and then Kansas City, it hurts them. It's obviously not like, terrible. I mean, if they end the season with 5 losses, I think all five teams they lost to, except the Ravens, will probably be in the playoffs. And if the Ravens were healthy all year, like they were in week 2, they probably would be in the playoffs. So, unfortunate loss. We'll talk about some of the playoff seeding in a bit, but I still think Kansas City is, the team to beat in the AFC. But another game that I think meant quite a bit. It's that Arizona-Dallas game was probably the other marquee game of the week, with 2 really good teams going up against each other. And I feel like the opposite of the Bengals-Chiefs games, where I feel like this game probably means a little bit, like, it gives me more to say on Dallas than it does on Arizona, because I think Dallas kind of – I never like to say a team lost it as opposed to another team winning it, because Arizona did win it. But Dallas, I feel like they kind of squandered their opportunity there to make a big statement. Yeah,
Dallas being a for sure winner of the NFC East and being, a top 10 team in this league, to be absolutely fair to them. Sure, a lot of people would say top 5, but I saw a stat right before the game saying that they don't have a win over a 10-win team, but Washington and Philly does. It's like, okay, sure, but Dallas has a fantastic offense. They have one of the best defenses in the league. They have 2 players who could make a statement for Defense Player of the Year. I mean, this is a good team. But they go up against a Cardinals team that had, very spotty momentum coming in. They just lost to the Lions not too long ago, and they've dealt with their fair share of injuries with not only Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, etc. The fact that Dallas hosted Arizona at home, and to be fair to Dallas, they came back and they at least gave themselves a fighting chance. But they slipped up just one too many times, and Kyler Murray had some amazing third down conversions and great plays. And, I mean, Cardinals had a fake punt that was Tyrell. What was the Giants receiver in the David Tyree? David Tyree, yes.
Yeah.
David Tyree on the fake punt.
Ward doing his helmet catch impersonation. They pulled out all the stops. For sure.
I mean, you gotta at least put your best foot forward in games like this, and I'm sure that they did to a certain degree. But if you're gonna lose by 3 points in the way that they did, I mean, they gotta come forward better with a better mindset going into the playoffs. They're easily the division champs. Like I said, they will have at least one home game. But, they lost their chance of a first-round bye, which, not too much against that considering the Packers are the Packers. But
yeah,
I would have liked to see Dallas win this game to prove, their worth both on the offense and defensive side of the ball. But, Cardinals are still fighting. I got to give them credit.
Yeah. I mean, after what Dallas did last week, one of the most complete performances that any team has put together all year, we both kind of said, like, now's the time to kind of turn it on. Now's the time to start playing like a team that is, supposed to win multiple games in the playoffs, and they had their opportunity to do it against a Cardinals team that was frankly floundering at the time, and they weren't able to do that. So it kind of puts you into that same thing of like, oh yeah, are the Cowboys, because for a week or a few it was like the Cowboys are in the top tier with these other teams, but now not so sure. And Cardinals, it's a good show of life to say maybe they can win a first round, because they could end up playing Dallas again. Maybe they can do something and just hope they get enough guys healthy and back, get DeAndre Hopkins back in the playoffs, maybe James Conner, stuff like that. We'll see. But not great for Dallas at all. And Arizona, I mean, it keeps them alive for the division. It keeps things, going. But I view it more on a negative thing toward Dallas, if anything else. What about, do you have another game that meant the ball? I'm trying to think of what other matchup had both.
Well, I'm surprised you haven't brought up Raiders Colts, because those were both teams that were on the cusp of the playoffs, and
that's the next one I was thinking.
I mean, this Colts team came in with however much momentum. I mean, they were on a 7-game win streak.
No, I don't know. It's only a few, but
they won however many over their past. Yeah. Like, they only lost one in the past however many games. I mean, this Colts team, a lot of people are putting in as a dark horse as a Super Bowl contender, and the fact that the Raiders went on the road and got it done, and really just shut out Carson Wentz in most areas of the football. It's like, I thought this Colts team was going to easily take care of Vegas, because I thought that they were done. But you look at the standings now, Raiders are still in it, and the Colts have not yet clinched. So we can talk about that in a second. But just about the game in general, I mean, they do rely a lot on Jonathan Taylor. We already knew that. And the Colts got plenty of key turnovers, and they just didn't take full enough advantage of them. And the Raiders still marched up the field without Darren Waller. They just used Hunter Renfrow like crazy, and Derek Carr played a great game as well to bring them back into this game. The Raiders are still in it. So it meant a lot for that team for sure. And the Colts, it's like, yes, you are a very hot team. You lost this one kind of slipped away from me at the end of the day, because it looked like they had all the momentum during this game, even though there were times where they were losing. It's like, this was the Colts game to win, and it just slipped away. And especially in Week 17, it just can't happen.
Yeah, and I heard you say Vegas, so it looks like they've earned your respect finally. I mean, it was a very surprising game. The Colts were the hot wild card team that's been on a tear. The Raiders were the team that were mathematically still in play, because they were, pretty good at the start of the year, but haven't seemed like the same team since, for a bunch of reasons outside of their control. And they put it together. They got the field goal at the end, and they, are in the playoff picture. So it was a very impressive a win. And then, I mean, Indianapolis, it's more of like all right, let down. You could have, I think they could have clinched a playoff spot. Obviously had a lot riding on this. It's not the end of the world, but you'd like to see. I mean, Jonathan Taylor's MVP case probably, it's a big hit with that. You'd like to see him really, take over and win a game like that. So it is unfortunate for them. Carson Wentz, got to play. We weren't even sure when we talked on Thursday if he was going to play. We thought it could be Sam Ehlinger. So that's certainly, is tough too, because they had their starting quarterback and weren't able to do it. But I want to go on now and talk about just, a little playoff update. I want to do a little hot or not edition here. Obviously, we have 1 week left in the season, but how many of these games are going to really mean something? How many of these teams are going to be really trying? We're not sure, but, I want to, there's 19 teams still mathematically eligible for the playoffs. I believe there are 11 teams that have locked up a playoff berth, at least 3 up for grabs. So I just want to go through and see who's hot and who's not. Before, just want to, give a little RIP for the Miami Dolphins. They were hot. They are no longer hot. They're eliminated. They probably weren't going to make it anyway based on everything else that happened, but they were very hot. But I mean, we've kind of we'll start with kind of the two teams we went over at the start: Chiefs and Bengals. Now, this doesn't mean that if a team loses, they can't be hot. Obviously, it's more of just like kind of how they're playing and stuff. But obviously, I mean, Bengals are as hot as anybody right now, legitimately being like playing like a team that could win the AFC. I think just in terms of, we've talked about there are a ton of like true contenders. It's kind of pretty wide open, and they just beat the team that was at the top of that. So I would say Bengals are certainly hot. I know we've already talked about them a bit.
Sure, like the Bengals are definitely hot, and like you said, even though the Chiefs lost, they are still the team to beat in the AFC. I agree with that. Yeah. Now with that Kansas City loss, you have to look at the AFC standings now because they're not the first overall seed. Now it's Tennessee, which could be exceptionally lucky for Tennessee's case, considering next week they play Houston.
Yeah, they'll need to lose to Houston. And Kansas City will need to win
which is definitely possible because Houston
they did lose already
this season. So
and Tennessee lost to Houston before. They have lost to them already.
So if Tennessee wins this game next week, they lock up the number 1 seed, which means they get a first round bye, and you get an extra week to prepare for Derrick Henry's return, and that is huge for the Titans.
That's only that's one less game Derrick Henry will have to play. So that's
exactly. Right.
Monstrous. So, I mean, Tennessee, we'll talk about them. I mean, hot for sure. I think just based on the seeding alone makes them hot because the Tennessee team with a bye week is very, very scary. If they can get Derrick Henry back and not have to play him for 4 games, just play him for 3, that would be huge. And, I mean, they just beat Miami, who was one of the hottest teams, and they beat them pretty handily. Well, I think we'll still have to see Tannehill step up a bit, but I mean, all year Tennessee's hopes were riding on Derrick Henry, and when they lost him, people thought it was over. Not over. Now that he's got a chance to come back, Tennessee is now looking very scary again, and like we said, a winnable AFC.
Right, and I guess another team that you can consider is pretty hot as well. If we're going to switch conferences here, obviously Green Bay. This is the best team in the league we're talking about here. But you got to at least talk about – we have to at least talk about Tampa Bay in some regards.
I want to say on Green Bay first.
Okay.
I mean, very hot. I mean, dismantled the Vikings. Obviously, they didn't have Kirk Cousins, but those are statement games you need.
You wouldn't have been able to tell that they lost to them earlier this season. That's pretty much how well they did.
And Tampa Bay statement game where a statement was made, not the statement they were hoping to make. I mean, yeah, Tom Brady led an incredible game-winning touchdown drive, but it was against the Jets. You shouldn't need to lead an incredible game-winning touchdown drive against the Jets. And so Tampa Bay, I think right now, out of all these teams, is the epitome of not. They are not hot. All the injuries, everything that happened, trailing against the Jets for a majority of that game. And then Antonio Brown just leaving in the middle of the game. I mean, just holding deuces up to the crowd, pumping him up as he runs off the field with his shirt off. It was a weird thing, and probably will be the lasting image of the Buccaneers season, I think, because I don't see them going for much longer beyond week 18.
Right. It might be the last image we see of Antonio Brown in the league, for all we know.
I think so.
So that happening during the Tampa Bay game, I think the best part is that they came back and won. So now Antonio Brown looks stupid. I mean, I've heard a version that said Bruce Arians said go in the game, Antonio Brown said no, and Bruce Arians said then leave. And I heard the version of Antonio Brown just left, and then they went up in the locker room, go and play, and he said no, then he said just leave. So regardless, Antonio Brown left.
I think he thought or said he had an injury, something like that he didn't want to go in, and then he left, and he's no longer a member of the Buccaneers, as Bruce Arians said. Antonio Brown, get the help that you need, because clearly, he's dealing with a lot of stuff. But and overcoming adversity is always good. But now we're looking at a Buccaneers team that is without Chris Godwin, is without Antonio Brown. Mike Evans is banged up. I believe he played, but who knows with him. Fournette, I believe, can come back for the playoffs, but he's still injured at the moment. I mean, it's just the whole thing about the Buccaneers was how much talent they had, and now that's starting to as they're not right now as good as Brady is. I mean, I can't see this team, doing much in the playoffs. They're not hot at all.
I mean, in the first round, they have the chance of playing either, we'll see how the playoffs kind of shake up in the NFC because there's still that last spot to be clinched up, considering Philadelphia just clinched. San Francisco could be a team that they play. Philadelphia could be a team that they play. New Orleans could have, all the stars aligned for them, and they could play them in the first round. Or they could play Arizona or LA. They have a lot of different possible teams that they could play. The majority of those teams.
New Orleans. No, not New Orleans.
Oh, that's right. I totally forgot about the New Orleans kryptonite. You're right.
Buccaneers.
So if they play or Philly, they could beat them. If they play Arizona, I think it would be a very good game. But LA, they would take them out right now.
But any of these teams can also beat them. I mean, they just needed a game-winning drive to beat the Jets. The Buccaneers are incredibly vulnerable. So yeah, they should beat Philly or San Francisco, but also, I mean, either of those teams could definitely beat them because, I mean, this is not the time that you want to struggle. And, it's similar to kind of what happened with Baltimore with kind of everything just happening right at the end and being bad for them. And so it's unfortunate circumstances, but they are not hot. I mean, let's go. We've already talked about Dallas and Arizona. I think I would say both of those, maybe not. Arizona still not. I mean, you've got to look at the last kind of month they've played, just not looking good. That Detroit loss is still hanging over their heads. If they get fully healthy, maybe they do something. In Dallas, I mean, I can't say hot. I'm still not I still think this team's probably the third team to beat in the NFC, maybe even second, depending on if they're clicking. But I just, to lose that game, you needed to win that game. The other teams that have won, the other teams that are hot, they're winning big games right now, or winning not big games by large amounts. So we'll see. Dallas plays Philly, I believe, this week. So that's a chance to make a statement, but they need to turn it around quickly again and play like they did last week.
Yeah, I would definitely say that Arizona is not hot right now, considering this is their first win in 3-4 weeks. They lost their previous 3, one of those being against Detroit and the other against Indianapolis and LA. The last playoff team, quote unquote, actual playoff team that they beat, even though they're not clinched, was San Francisco back in early November. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it's 6-7 weeks ago. It's 7 weeks, including the bye. That's the last time that they've won an actual notable game. Once they lost to Green Bay to break their undefeated streak, that's when they started going a downward spiral. So I said it again last week, and I'll even say it again today, even though they beat Dallas on the road, I don't think they can win a playoff game. I don't think they have all the pieces set to take out a Tampa Bay, to take out the Rams, take out not the Packers because they clinched the conference. Take out the Cowboys.
No. The Packers haven't clinched first round bye yet.
They have clinched the first round bye. They clinched it today.
No, they haven't.
I'm looking at it right now. They clinched it because they hold the tiebreaker over Tampa Bay and LA.
Oh, they do? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe it was with I think if Dallas had one, then maybe that was some. Okay, yeah. So AFC hasn't been.
Arizona.
Arizona.
I don't think they can beat any team that'll be in the playoffs.
They just beat Dallas, though.
I'm saying regardless of that, they cannot.
Yeah. They can. I
don't think it was a lucky win. Don't get me wrong. But playoff football is completely different. We can both agree on that. And most of the time, if you're going to beat a team in the last few weeks and then face off against them in the playoffs, the other team, the team that lost statistically has a higher chance of winning. It just happens time and time again. So Dallas, I think, could flip everything around and take out the Cardinals in the first round if they faced off each other.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, so I don't
Arizona is not hot by any means.
Yeah, no. I don't think Arizona, like, necessarily will, but they definitely could. I mean, because Tampa Bay, I could see losing in the first round to any of these teams. I just think they're struggling a lot right now. And, I mean, we can talk about LA. It's tough because I wouldn't say they're hot. Now, I still think, and they probably have the most or very close to the most talent out of anybody there. I think it can click at any moment, but Stafford needs to, rein it in a little bit. He's still making bad throws, making bad plays. So I wouldn't say they're hot. I'm not as concerned about them as anybody else, but, to be a Huntley-led Baltimore team by 1 point, scoring right at the end, like I said, you need to have more convincing wins this point of the season to really have that momentum rolling into the playoffs, because Green Bay right now, I mean, they're looking like an NFC juggernaut. So I would be concerned if I was any of these other teams.
Sure. And a lot of what I'm going off of with, the hot or not with all these playoff teams is, of course, their playoff experience, because that does mean something at the end of the day, whether people want to believe it or not. Arizona is going into their first playoff in, I'm not sure how many seasons, but it's Cliff Kingsbury's first playoffs. It's Kyler Murray's first playoff. You would potentially go up against a San Francisco that made the Super Bowl not too long ago. You would potentially go up against Dallas that has technically a Super Bowl winning coach and a quarterback and a running back that have gotten first round buys in the NFC before. There are numerous players on this Dallas team that have playoff experience, and they have rookies that I don't think it's going to matter if they need the experience or not. Micah Parsons and Trayvon Diggs are going to come to play.
Trayvon Diggs isn't a rookie. We've been over this.
Sure, I'm second-year player. He's close enough. Okay.
Yeah.
The Rams, Sean McVay has coached in the Super Bowl as well with Jared Goff. So all of these teams have playoff experience. Green Bay has made the NFC title game 3 straight years. The only team that they could maybe have a chance against just based off of playoff experience is Philly, because it's new coaching staff, new quarterback.
They won a Super Bowl.
It's a new coaching staff and a new quarterback. That doesn't matter.
I know.
So Arizona, just
Lane
based off
Johnson
of
and Jason Kelsey,
can't do this. I mean,
we have players.
This isn't the same. This isn't the Titans team from a few years ago, where the Titans went on that crazy run in. I think it was either Vrabel's first or second year. I want to say second year.
It was, yeah. Well, yeah. I'm not
this
sure
isn't that same team because they're just not as dangerous. Kyler Murray is still prone to make mistakes. He's a fantastic player. I would say he's a top 10 quarterback in this league, but he's prone to make mistakes. He gets flustered when he's under pressure, but then again, he's at his best at most times when he's under pressure. All those things combined, you just don't have enough to take out some of these teams. Isaiah Simmons, I think, is a fantastic young player on defense. Budda Baker will come to play as well. I mean, maybe Chandler Jones will finally get some sacks again. They just don't have it all put together.
One. Yeah, a little strip
sure.
sack.
Chandler Jones has one Super Bowl with the greatest sports of all time. So
he got a sack. I was trying to talk about the Rams. Okay. You had to go back to Arizona. You really wanted to just,
I'm just saying, they're an 11 win. They're down. They're an 11-win team at the end of the day, and it's a little misleading because 7 of those wins were in the first half of the season. 8 of those wins. No,
certainly. I mean, they're not playing great. So LA, as I was trying to talk about, are hot or not to you? LA, Rams.
LA, they're going to be hot until they play up against a team that legitimately stand a chance. Obviously, beating the Ravens by 1 point. You'd want to beat them by more, just like Tampa Bay narrowly beating the Jets. I get that. The Ravens have battled through so much adversity that I don't care if they have Tyler Huntley or if they have Johnny Manziel at quarterback. I think they still could take out the majority of the league at any given point in time because we see how great Huntley can play. Do I know that Huntley can play good for another team? Not necessarily. John Harbaugh is a great coach. So I'm never going to count out the rate. I was literally looking at my predictions today to see, man, I wonder how close my predictions line up. I have almost all of the AFC teams predicted except for the Ravens, who I said was going to be the first overall seed, and you said I think they were going to be the third overall seed. We both kind of whiffed on that because you disregarded the Bengals, I disregarded the Colts is basically what it was. So the Ravens, even though they are 8-8, and I think they still have a chance.
No.
They have to have a lot of losses.
Oh, yeah. Ravens, still technically.
They have to have an Indianapolis, a Chargers, and a Vegas loss, as well as I think Pittsburgh has to lose as well. And Miami has to lose. So they have to have.
No, Miami is out.
Okay.
It's the Colts, the Chargers, the Raiders are 9-7, and there's 2 spots up for grabs between them. So Baltimore, and I don't know, obviously I'm not going to pontificate about tiebreakers and stuff, but they'll need at least 2 of those teams, probably a specific 2 ahead of them.
I'm sure they need all of them to lose for Baltimore to make the playoffs, but
one could maybe win because there's 2 spots up for grabs, but we'll see. But either way, I mean, Baltimore is a team that even if they're able to get in, they are not going to do anything. Let's be honest. Like they've just absorbed too much, too much damage over the season, and it's not so much their fault at the end of the day. So back on the Rams, I mean, yes, they beat them by 1 point, and they shut down the Ravens beautifully on their last drive. I know they had less than a minute and 1 timeout, but they had the best kicker possibly ever that could kick a 60-yard field goal if he just went a few extra yards past a touchback on the kickoff. So that does mean something at the end of the day, and I think Odell Beckham's a good addition for them. This could very well be an NFC title game type team, but can they take up? I think they're the second team to beat in the NFC, but that's more of because I think some of the other teams are struggling because, I mean, LA is not doing anything crazy. I mean, if Stafford stops throwing bad interceptions, I'll be much more bought in to the Rams team, but we've talked about it for weeks before. They've got all the talent in the world to beat anybody. So I don't think they're hot, but I don't think they're necessarily like trending in the wrong direction. I think they're just kind of like holding their ground.
Think of it this way with playoff football being different from regular season football. I'll use the example of the Bills last year. Bills were extremely hot. They had an amazing offense. They had all the momentum in the world going up to the playoffs, made it to the AFC title game. They couldn't run the ball against the Chiefs, and they lost, okay? Happens. The Chiefs have more playoff experience, okay? Playoff football compared to regular season football is very, very situational based. And if you look at the best teams in the NFL right now, Kansas City, Green Bay, fantastic situational football teams, okay? Playoff football is all based off of those moments. And Sean McVay, having gone to the promised land once before, you have to take advantage of every single play counts. You can't take
all the way to
risks.
The promised land.
I mean, sure, but Arizona, am I really going to trust them in situational football? Am I going to trust
Stop talking
Dallas? No, it was the one time I was going to mention them. Am I going to trust Dallas in situational football? Not necessarily sure. But Tampa Bay, I could absolutely trust in situational football.
I trust Tom Brady. I trust Tom Brady. I don't trust the rest of them. I mean, So there's 3 teams in this conference that could actually make a legitimate push, and those are the teams that are hot. Just like how I don't think Dallas is hot. And, the only 3 teams in the NFC that are hot are Green Bay, LA, and Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's not hot, though.
They won, didn't they? A win's a win at the end of the day. I mean,
a win. Not all wins are created equal because the Packers win and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers win, very, very different wins.
Sure, they are.
So
when you look at the win-loss record, it's not, but yes.
It's still different enough. But all I'm saying is a comeback to beat the Jets is not the type of game you want to have 2 weeks before the playoffs. It's just not what you want to be doing. But all right, no more mentions of the Arizona Cardinals.
I swear I won't even bring them up again, okay?
But we can talk about the AFC because now we've mentioned Titans, Chiefs, Bengals all clinched their division. They are locked in, as well as on the NFC. I don't know if we mentioned it, but Packers, Buccaneers, Cowboys all clinched their division. Rams and Cardinals have clinched the playoffs, and the Eagles, who we'll talk about in a sec, have clinched a playoff spot. But the AFC, other than those 3 division-winning teams, the Bills and the Patriots have clinched playoffs. Bills are in the driver's seat for the division. Patriots to win, and the Bills to lose. But hot or not for those two teams.
So both Buffalo and New England. I mean, New England just scored 50 freaking points. So yes, they went up against the Jaguars at the end of the day, but New England, despite the loss to Buffalo a few weeks ago, this is still a hot team because I will, just like Tom Brady, I'm never going to count out Bill Belichick. Can they win? So I think they're a hot team going into the playoffs. Them winning a playoff game is up for debate because
I think they're like
still a rookie quarterback at the end of the day.
They're like simmering right now because like they're doing what we said a team needs to do, and they're taking a team that is not as good as them, and they're kicking the shit out of them and being like, we're a playoff team. You're the Jaguars. We're much better. It's what the Buccaneers should have done. So they're hot in that regard, but the adding the other games in, I mean, I think the past 2 games were those the Bills lost, and I think the Colts lost, so they're not necessarily hot in terms of the grand scheme of things, but they just played a great game. They have a chance against Miami to pick up a win against a really competitive team. But, I mean, I still have my concerns. You're talking about playoff experience. Yes, Bill Belichick has it, but Bill Belichick doesn't get to make the plays on the field. That's going to come down to Mac Jones, and I'm still a little worried. And then Buffalo, although I wasn't that impressed with their win over Atlanta, it was much closer than it should have been. I mean, they're hot. They played really well last week. I mean, it's going to come down to Josh Allen, which is not surprising. I mean, he played incredible last week, played not as great this week. But it's going to come down to him. But Buffalo, I mean, they have the potential. Like I've said, if they turn it on, they can beat damn near anybody. And they're playing well right now, I believe. They'll play the Jets. So probably, I think, probably a nothing game going on. But, win the division. I mean, we could see I guess if these teams both win, depending on what Cincinnati does, but we could see a rematch in the first round of the playoffs between them.
That would be interesting, and I'd still pick Kansas City in that matchup. But
I mean, we'd see a New England Buffalo matchup in the first round.
Oh yeah, which would be depending on where that game is. It could go
probably
either way.
Be in Buffalo. It would probably be in Buffalo because
both these teams could definitely win because New England's going against Miami, Buffalo going against the Jets. Yeah, so those should be wins. They should be still playing all their starters next weekend because they are competing for a home game. But if that game is in Buffalo, that's going to be a game to watch for sure with just this rivalry alone.
I think it might be a game to watch no matter where it's played.
Sure, but especially in Orchard Park, I think.
I mean, Buffalo. If Buffalo, very entertaining game. I mean, we're a few weeks ahead, but Buffalo beating New England in Buffalo, I don't know. Hopefully, they've got 2 weeks to make all their buildings fireproof because I think
I was about to say. I mean,
burn to the ground.
Riot. That's the thing.
Yeah. But
it'd be riot either way, pretty much, is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. So Buffalo, are you saying? I assume you're saying hot. I don't.
Both these teams are hot. Can they win playoff games?
They need to keep it up. Is the thing.
Right.
They need to keep it up. This is a very short, hot streak for each of them. It's not like like we said, the Chiefs and the Packers have a 2-month hot streak going on. Teams like that. Whereas these other teams have a few weeks. So I guess we'll talk about the last team to have a secure playoff spot. That's the Eagles. I mean, hot. I would say hot because they got into the playoffs on the sense of a hot streak. I don't think hot as in like, oh, watch out for the Eagles. Hot. I mean, a few weeks ago there was this jumbled mess of teams that were, have losing records that were still there for the playoffs, and now the Eagles are 9-7. So they're hot. They got here by a sense of being hot. I mean, you'd like for that 7th seed to be, you'd rather it be a team that's riding a hot streak as opposed to a Baltimore team that's kind of, just staving off a kind of a cold streak. So it makes them a little bit more dangerous, especially with their run game. But I'd say hot just because they've, rattled off some wins to get here, but I'm not convinced or anything.
Right. They're hot, but they're not going to really stand much of a chance to upset anybody. And I do
they could do a first round. They could do a first round upset, sure. They could get one depending on what the matchup is. But
most likely they're gonna have to play the Rams. So and drop out lasts and get some playoff revenue. And the Eagles fans are gonna be real happy for the next week and a half, and then all of a sudden they got to play in the playoffs, and then they're going to be all pissy again. So,
but also this is the week because they play Dallas. If they, hang with Dallas, or if because they've had a lot of Washington, New York games recently. Like they haven't really had any proven games. But if they can hang with Dallas or even beat Dallas, then they become a little more, scary. But yeah, I mean, hot in terms of they got there, but not hot in terms of starting to make a Super Bowl run. And then, I mean, I want to talk about.
I was going to say we didn't talk about the still in the hunt teams in the AFC.
Yeah, we'll hit some of them, not all of them, but I do want to say one more in the NFC before we go straight to AFC. The 49ers are in the 6th spot. They still could drop out. They play the Rams this week, and the Saints play the Falcons. And if the Saints win and the 49ers lose, they'll bump out. But I mean. I think if I'm looking at the last 4 or 5 weeks, I'd probably say San Francisco's kind of hot. I mean, that game against Tennessee was rough, but I don't know. I mean, they've got weapons. They're playing well. I think they've got first round upset potential, but not deep run potential like some of the AFC wild card teams.
Well, the question I have to ask myself is who's going to play quarterback for them?
Yeah.
It needs to be Jimmy Garoppolo. So it doesn't need to be Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't know. I mean,
for them, yeah. You want to talk about inexperience? Trey Lance is.
You're right. Jimmy G
has played in
a Super Bowl for sure. It's
and just the whole. Did
they do a dual quarterback system? I don't know.
No, you don't pull that gimmick shit in the playoffs. Because
that's what the Saints are going to do when they make the play, or once they make the playoffs, if they make the playoffs. I mean,
no, the Saints have been rolling with Taysom Hill, but that's what I'm saying. That's not going to work. Nobody's scared. Jimmy Garoppolo, he's not the greatest in the world, but he won't lose you the game. Trey Lance, he's too inexperienced to be starting in the NFL right now. He needs this year and this next offseason to figure it out. Certainly not in the playoffs. He's not coming in and doing anything crazy. So it'll be Jimmy G, and they,
You need the quarterback that has the better connection with Kittle and Debo. And that is Jimmy. And that is Jimmy G.
Yeah. But yeah, let's go AFC. The 2 teams currently sitting in the wild card spots are the Colts and the Chargers, with the Raiders right on the outside. They're all 9-7. I mean, pick one of those teams, and we'll hit these 3 teams, and then I think that'll be it.
We're going to agree on those Colts, right? I mean, sure, they let one slip away against the Raiders, but this Colts team still has something going for them. They still could potentially beat most teams in their conference. Could they take out a Chiefs team right now? No. Could they take out the Titans? Who knows? The Titans may very well have a first-round bye, and the Colts may play them in that divisional round. They have a chance against the Titans. I know the Titans beat them twice in this season already, but this Colts team still has potential. They are just still very, very Jonathan Taylor reliant.
I mean, the Colts
defense is still talented is the thing.
I mean, right now the Colts would be playing the Bengals in the first round, and I would take the Bengals in that. This past week for the Colts was a big dampener on kind of what they've been doing, because this was a team that needed to roll straight into the playoffs. And honestly, they play the Jaguars this week. Mm-hmm. It's not whatever they do.
What really be talking about is the Chargers and Raiders, because they play each other.
Yeah. But the Colts, no matter what they can do, it's the Jaguars. It's not going to be enough for that build back the momentum that they kind of lost this week. So I think it's a tough thing. I'd say, they're like, it's like when you put out the fire or like when when you're cooking on the stove and you turn off the stovetop, but the light's still on to say it's hot. Like that's the Colts for me right now. Like, yeah, if you touch it, it's still hot, but like it's nothing. It's just like leftover heat. So they can do it, but we'll see. But yeah, Chargers, Raiders. Raiders are in a season of kind of unbelievable teams doing things we weren't expecting them. Cincinnati winning the division, Philly getting in the playoffs.
You gotta give credit to the Raiders, though. Yeah.
What the Raiders are at right now is insane.
I don't even know who their head coach is right now.
Rich Bisaccia.
It looks like he's doing a great job.
I need to look at what they did because I don't even know how many games in a row have they won. They've won 1, 2. 3 weeks ago, they won 3 in a row. 4 weeks ago, they got demolished by the Chiefs.
Right. Yeah.
And
that's when that's when we counted them out. Was when that happened.
So they've won 3 in a row. So I guess by definition they're hot. Like I said with Philly, they're hot because they're winning games to get them in the spot. But I'm not really convinced. I think it's oh my God, this team got into the playoffs. Holy crap! And then they lose because you know who they would. If they, I don't know what spot they would get. My guess. If the Colts win, which they're playing the Jaguars, they will win. If the Raiders win at the 7th seed, who they'll play right now. Yeah, we've seen that play out 2 times, and guess what? 3rd time, it's not the freaking charm because it's not happening.
No, but if the Chargers win, they have a legitimate chance against the Chiefs because they do have at least one win over them. Did they not beat them both times, or it was just the one time? I think it was just the once.
I believe it was just the one time. I can't. Oh, wait. Yeah, because it would have been in this stretch recently.
Yeah, they split their games against Kansas City. So, if you had next week, we'll have to predict it for sure between the Chargers and the Raiders.
We'll talk about this on Thursday for sure.
Right. So between both those teams going up against the Chiefs in the first round, obviously you take the Chargers to win.
Yeah, I'm taking quarterbacks.
Right. If the Raiders make these playoffs, I don't know if they could beat a team. If they're very similar to the Eagles for that regard. It's like,
they will be they're the least convincing team in all these playoffs. I would be more convinced with the Eagles.
It's like the Chargers are very similar to the Niners, and the Raiders are very similar to the Eagles right now.
Yeah, and I put the Eagles above them. But yeah, great for them. And then Chargers, I wouldn't say they're hot because this is a team at a time had a chance to win the division. Obviously, then the Chiefs went on their run, and they've had some questionable games here and there, questionable performances, but tons of talent. They seem to be getting it all back now, so they have the potential to get hot. I guess that's another category. It was just team that's not necessarily hot but can get hot. That's the Rams and even the Bucks and stuff like that maybe aren't hot now but can get hot. Chargers kind of fall in that category. But yeah, we'll see. Obviously, that spot will be decided on the field and won't have anything.
Plus, you can't have much faith in the Chargers when they just lost to Houston 2 weeks ago. They just allowed 41 points.
Yeah, I forgot about that. No, the Chargers are not hot. They lost to Houston. Yeah.
Good. So
thanks for bringing that up.
These teams have their pros and cons. We'll have to predict it on Thursday. But
at the end of the day,
they're going to be there in those playoffs.
You're in the wild card for a reason. Mm-hmm. If you're in the wild card, something has not gone right, or something, And
if you're the Raiders, everything has gone wrong. So,
you're not in the wild card because you had a great season and everything went right. You're in the wild card because either struggled at the start and turned it on, or you started good, faltered, whatever. Nobody goes. Nobody's I don't know if it happened. Team goes 14-2, makes a wild card, or 15-2 now makes a wild card.
I know it's so weird to see the records now on the standings because there's one more week. I'm just like, no, like
everything used to make sense.
I'm used to. Like
everything used to like make
3. That's weird.
Yeah, everything used to make sense, and now we have to like recalibrate our brain. Speaking
it
of,
already took me forever to get used to players on the defensive line wearing single-digit numbers. So like,
hey, Okay,
I'm barely used to that now.
Okay, Grandpa. Well, there is two teams actually that are making their records make sense to you, and that one of them is the Pittsburgh Steelers because they tied with the Lions. So they're 7-7-1, but they have they'll end up with a familiar looking record. They play tonight against the Browns in a game where Pittsburgh still has some playoff chances. I believe if they win this, I believe if they lose.
Yeah, because I think the Browns are out.
Yeah, Browns are out. Pittsburgh 2.5-point favorites. I can't pick the Browns at this point. Speaking of teams where everything is going wrong, it seems like everything is going wrong. And just funny thing, you remember, I think it was last year, Odell gets injured, Baker starts doing good, and it's like, oh, Odell's holding Baker back, all this stuff. Do you remember all that?
Yeah, because it carried over into this season as well.
But guess what? Baker was holding Odell Beckham Jr. back because Odell is good now, and Baker is not doing great without him. But Cleveland, this is a team that they were good last year. They're probably closer to last year. They're probably, as a team, should be closer to last year than they are this year. I think this is a series of unfortunate events to say. And it's not at their potential. They need to just get what they can out of this season and regroup and, try to win the division next year. And Pittsburgh is, I don't know. I guess they're still trying to hold on to the glory days of Ben Roethlisberger, even though
those Letterman jackets.
Let's just remember the last time the Steelers were good, like actually good, I guess I would say, Ben Roethlisberger was a quarterback. We see him now. Le'Veon Bell was a running back. He's now on the Buccaneers, if you didn't know, very quietly.
Antonio Brown, he
was on the Buccaneers for about half a game. So, we've seen it happen. They've fallen. I think Mike Tomlin deserves a lot of credit for being able to keep this team from becoming an entire dumpster fire. And
he has to go down as probably one of the most underrated coaches of recent memory.
Yeah. Probably.
I don't know how you can get a team like this to 7-7-1.
But they've developed good talent along the way. Quarterback and some things have been holding them back. They'll have an interesting year next year, trying to figure things out. But I think they win this game against Cleveland.
They have the upper hand against Cleveland. I will agree on that. The only thing that I would look at in this game is Baker, considering. I think so. Like, I know I probably asked the same question last year. Was this year his option year where they picked him up for one last year before a contract extension? Next
year is his final year. They picked up his option, so next year is his 5th year. He's in the same boat as.
So they already picked up his option. He's going to be on the team next year.
Yeah, I believe they picked it. They would have picked it up at the start of the year. Same with Lamar. Same with Sam Darnold.
Okay. So,
and Josh Allen, he's got the extension. Do you remember who the 5th quarterback of that first-round draft class was?
That was Josh Rosen, wasn't it?
Josh Rosen.
Yeah. He's
man. Gone. Yeah, so Baker, I believe, has one more year. Let me check his contract. But I don't know. Cleveland fans, he's the guy who
they're turning on him quick is the thing. It's like...
he's the guy who unlocked their, Bud Light vaults of beer around the city when they finally won a game, but now they're like all over.
When they broke the playoff drought as well, they're not taking they need the playoffs for this team the first time in 2 decades.
Yep. Yeah, he's under contract for next year. They picked up his option.
Okay. So I thought this was going to be a little bit more of a proving game for him, but it looks like he's still locked up. But to be honest, it still kind of is a proving game because who knows if Cleveland's front office is going to make some crazy-ass move in the offseason. But Baker needs to do something to keep a handle on his spot here. Because the thing with Baker is when he plays good and he throws 250, 300 yards, He doesn't get touchdowns because this is still a running team. It's like he's not a passing threat in the red zone or midfield on his own 1 yard line. You can't count on, in this offense at least, you can't count on him to get passing touchdowns. When he has his best games, he's not putting scores on the board. But when he has these games where he's throwing 2-3 interceptions, he might have 1 or 2 touchdowns. But it's very hard to get a read on the guy when you're playing for an offense that's very, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt heavy. And now you don't have Odell, and he's playing good somewhere else. Jarvis Landry is quickly just floating away into the darkness without anybody really remembering that he used to be a great receiver for Miami. Njoku is not the same up-and-coming tight end he was a few years ago.
He's like their third-string tight end.
He is now. So that's what I'm saying.
He's not the starter. Yeah, it's
Cleveland just doesn't. It's Baker, all fading away, and it happened over the course of less than a year.
You can build a good offense around Baker. You cannot build a good offense like starting with Baker. Like he's not like the foundational piece. You've got weapons and a system and all this stuff. It could work.
Right, so like if you put Baker on Indianapolis, if you put Baker on Tennessee, he's better than. I think he's technically an upgrade over Ryan Tannehill. I would say that.
I think he's more talented. Yeah.
And over what's his name, Carson Wentz. I mean, Carson Wentz, he can play good on the. Carson Wentz is a smarter quarterback than Baker is, and he's been through the gauntlet, so to speak, with almost winning an MVP. And you could put Baker Mayfield in those teams, and he could benefit in those systems.
But I think
we'll never know if Baker was on like a Chiefs, where it's just throw the ball to Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce.
I don't think. I think I think Kirk Cousins has perfected a Kirk Cousins mold. You are a incredibly competent quarterback. If you have the right team around you, the team can honestly win a Super Bowl. But you cannot elevate a team. You cannot, it's what guys like, even like Russell Wilson, who's had his moments, he's elevated bad teams. It's what Aaron Rodgers, what all these guys have done. Kirk Cousins, you can put on a great team, and they'll be good with a good defense.
Kirk Cousins, you could put on like Miami. Well,
we've seen it. We've seen it on the times when Minnesota got into the playoffs. When they have a top tier roster, you can get as far as you need with him. You can do that with Baker Mayfield. I think Cleveland just isn't there yet. And I think we'll see.
They beat Pittsburgh in the first round of playoffs last year, right? They did win a playoff game.
They demolished them.
Right. So, technically, I mean, Baker can get it done. It's just, it's like you're rolling a 20-sided die every time he takes the field, and you only have about 2 numbers that need to pop up for him to have a good game. He's got about a 10% chance to have a good game on any given week, and that's far too low when you look at the great quarterbacks in this league. And it's far too low to look at a number 1 overall pick. So
if you're trying to compete, Cleveland came in, I believe, with Super Bowl aspirations.
Absolutely. I thought that they were a contender to be the AFC, representative.
Yeah, they got to the Final Four of the conference last year. That 2 steps away, and it's clearly a step back. Now,
and I don't know what happened. That's the thing.
Yeah, they need to regroup. I think there was some health stuff that we'll see. The defense, I think, was not as upgraded as we thought. I don't know. We'll see, but. We did a lot on Cleveland and Baker Mayfield. I'm surprised.
Yeah, Pittsburgh still sucks, but they're going to win this game, and Ben Roethlisberger is going to retire, and they're going to win like 3 games.
His last game in Heinz Field, I believe.
Is his last game there?
I mean, I think they're away next week, I believe. So I think it's at home, is it not?
And they're not going to make the playoffs, so he's probably going to cry.
Well, they can make the playoffs. They can make the playoffs,
but they're not going to. I mean,
well, they also won't get a home game.
Right. This will definitely be his last game in Heinz Field.
You can't go against a Ben Roethlisberger and a ride into the sunset game.
I never said the Cleveland.
No. I'm not saying at you. I'm just saying in general. Like,
sure,
you can't go against that. Not you.
You could absolutely go against Ben Roethlisberger at any point in this season because he looks like someone's stepdad trying to play pickup game at a park. But Ben Roethlisberger, it's going to be a great night for you. You'll win the game by what's the spread on this? 3 points, 2.5. Sure.
If you could probably cover. If you took, say, I don't know, say a group of 15-year-old kids oblivious to what NFL players look like, and then you went and you grabbed 7 just random 40-year-olds from the YMCA and Ben Roethlisberger, and you lined them up, and you had the 15-year-olds pick pickup teams.
I'm just trying to
When do you think Ben Roethlisberger would get picked? Like Ben Roethlisberger,
they had no knowledge. They had no
seven random dudes from the YMCA. You got 2 15-year-olds picking teams. They don't know one of them's an NFL quarterback. Like what? You think he gets picked not last? Because I don't know.
He wouldn't get picked last. I mean,
are you sure, dude?
They'd probably pick the one that looks like the fastest, and
I think the YMCA.
He's still a huge guy. So I mean,
yeah, but huge in the wrong way too.
I'm
not. Saying he doesn't look. He doesn't look like an athlete.
He's not Shaq, for God's sakes. Like, he's just a big body. He's just a.
He doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't look like an athlete anymore. Is what I'm saying.
If they were playing tackle football, he'd be the number 1 pick. If they were playing 2-hand touch, then he's going to be a sleeper in the 4th or 5th round. How about that?
I'm just saying, like, he doesn't look like an athlete anymore.
No,
and it's bad for them. But all right, so Pittsburgh will win. We're in consensus on that. We'll see how it goes down.
Might be the most we've talked about Pittsburgh or Cleveland this entire season.
Use those terrible towels to wipe your terrible tears.
Terrible season, yeah.
Joy or sadness as you watch Ben Roethlisberger, I don't know, throw the ball fluttering in the air straight into the ground for the last time in Heinz Field. Have fun, Steelers fans, because guess what? You got no plan for what's next. So,
I mean, who's the next quarterback that needs to retire and Roethlisberger to be the end of an era? I guess you'd say Tom Brady, because I mean, Drew Brees is gone.
Well, Ben Roethlisberger's in the same draft as Eli and Phillip Rivers. So,
right. So Rivers is gone. He's gone now. Aaron Rodgers doesn't count because he didn't start playing until the late 2000s. So
yeah.
I think probably Brady is the last quarterback of this.
But era. Brady doesn't count because he's an alien and a robot.
And he's just going to play until he's 60. And,
yeah, exactly. But yeah, that'll do it for us today. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to be back with us on Thursday as we will preview the final week of the season with some consequential games, some certainly not. Reminder, you can also follow Dash Sports on socials, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter, Dash Sports TV, as well as subscribe to the Dash Sports YouTube channel where you can keep up with everything that we've got going on. Once again, thank you